Hi, everybody. We'll get started here in just 2 minutes. Start in 2 minutes. Good morning, everybody. We can start here in about a minute and a half. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started here in just a little over a minute. Good morning, everybody. We can start in 1 minute. 1 minute and counting. Good morning, everybody. We can start here in just a little bit less than a minute, probably 30 seconds. Good morning, everybody. We'll get started in just a few seconds here. In time for the last people to get dialed in. Good morning, everybody. We get started here in just a few seconds. Just a few seconds. Okay. So double closing ratio at the first meeting. So what are examples of a first meeting? Give me some examples of a first meeting. Well, first meeting could be a webinar or a seminar. A first meeting could be you're at a barbecue and you meet somebody. But in classic sense, the first meeting is the first meeting where people have come in to meet us in our office. But what I'm going to show you today will actually work for any time you meet somebody and you want them to continue forward in the sales process. It's things you all know, but as we found out, there's so much here with 5Q that sometimes you forget what you know. So I want to remind you of some of the tools that you have available to get people to move through the process. Because if you spent money, time, and effort on a seminar or webinar, you want to make sure you get as many of those people to move forward. If you've invested the time at a first meeting, they come into your office, you're already that far, you want to make sure they commit to going to the second meeting. If you're in the meeting somebody in the barbecue in the backyard and they have shown interest, you don't want to waste that opportunity and you want them to move forward into the process. So these are the things that you can do to get people to commit to go to the, not only commit to go to the next meeting, but show up for the next meeting. Now, how much does it cost to do that? So I'm not talking about the cost of a seminar or webinar. I'm not talking about the cost of a barbecue. I'm talking about how much does it cost that once you're in front of somebody, taking your closing ratio, getting them from a seminar or a webinar, going from a 30% close ratio and only half of those people showing up at in your office to an 80% closing ratio and 90% of those people showing up at your office. How much does it cost to do that? At a barbecue, getting them to commit to coming into your office and showing up. How much does that cost? It costs you nothing. Nothing. But how much would your profits go up if you did a webinar or seminar? And instead of having a 30% closing ratio and half of those people showing up at your office, you have an 80% closing ratio and 9% of the people showing up at your office. How much more profit are you going to see based on that? Meeting somebody in the barbecue in the backyard and having them show up at your office rather than just turning into a wasted conversation, how much profit increase is that? When somebody actually shows up at your office, getting them to commit to come to the second meeting, go through the process, how much profit? We're talking about immense amounts of profit with zero, as Mark says. Mark, you're right. It costs us zero to do that. So Inside Influence, interviews with business influencer marketing insiders and the National Health System. Both of these came to the same conclusion using the same exact Yale close. It was a close designed by the medical team. Weird, but the medical school at Yale designed a close. And they've proven it works with businesses. They've proven it works in the national health system in the United Kingdom. And think about this, though. Why would the Yale health system want to design a close that works? Well, a lot of this has to do with inner city hospitals. And those of you that are fans of the pit, you see how many of those people that come into the pit are like us, where we have good healthcare systems and we can go and go to a good doctor, a good hospital, etc. How many of those people, some of those people do show up because it's a true emergency, but how many chronic people without health insurance show up in emergency rooms? And how much does that cost healthcare systems? A gazillion dollars. So the whole thought was we need to get these people to, because what they will do is they'll get help, and then they say, okay, now go to your doctor and take care of these things. But they don't. They don't go to the doctor. They don't show up for those appointments. And then what happens? They end up in the emergency room again, which costs all sorts of money. So this was designed as a cost-saving measure to get low-income people to show up for their appointments. Now think about this. Why do low-income people not show up for their medical appointments? Think about that. So give me some answers, guys. Why would low-income people not show up for their medical appointments? First of all, a lot of them are worried about, how am I going to pay for this? Number two is, many of them have 2 or 3 jobs. Do they have time to go to an appointment? Many of these have jobs that if they don't show up for the job, what will their boss do? Fire them. Many of these people do not have transportation, so they might have to take 5 bus transfers to get to their appointments because they don't have cars. Many of them have children, and how much does childcare cost? They don't have the ability to get somebody to take care of the child. So they were seeing in the study that caused Yale to develop this technique, they found that over 70% of people were not showing up for their next appointment. And it's the same thing in the National Health Service. The National Health Service obviously doesn't just work with poor people. It works with the whole population in the UK. And business people, well, they obviously don't work, hopefully they're not working with poor people. They're working with people actually with money. So how do people get, how do you get people to show up? Well, here's some of the things they found. First of all, getting the person simply to repeat the date and time verbally. Repeat the date and time verbally lowered the no-show rate by 6.7%. How simple is it to get somebody to repeat? So what time is the appointment? Well, it's on March 3rd. And what day of the week is that? It was Thursday, March 3rd. And what time? It's 7. Is that going to work for you? Thursday, March 3rd at 7. So you get them to repeat it verbally, a lowering of 6.7%. Have the patient fill out date and time on a physical card, writing with their hand with a pen on a piece of paper, lower the no-show rate by 18%. Many dentists, I mean, my dentist did this for years, for decades, had me write out my own card that I would write out the appointment, and then they would mail that with my own handwriting, which means I committed to this. It's verifying in my mind, I committed to this to show up at this time. And guys, how much of a problem for those of you that haircuts or spa appointments or dental appointments, I mean, how much of a no-show problem is there? How many times do these places send you reminders via text? Has anybody experienced this? Has anybody experienced like 5 reminders to show up for the appointment? So obviously this is or is not a problem. Now, I haven't seen any data on how effective it is to text people. I'm sure it has some effect. But do you think having somebody fill out a physical card with date and time is going to be more or less effective than texting them? There's a lot of psychology going on here. So 18% fall off in no-show rate. The other thing is change the wording on signs. You've probably all seen this at the Petrified Wood Park, changing the state of the petrified forest. So many visitors have actually been taking all the petrified wood out of that park, which spoils it for future generations, right? So they tried, they had to stop the problem. So how did they do it? So the majority of past visitors have left petrified wood in the park. So they tried 2 signs. Many past visitors have removed the petrified wood from the park, changing the state of the petrified forest. Please help stop the problem. And then they tried a different sign saying, the majority of past visitors have left petrified wood in the park, preserving the natural state of the petrified forest. 4 times less theft. Look at that. Saying, hey, many past visitors have removed petrified wood from the park, changing the state of the forest. Please help stop the problem. What did people think there? Oh my God, if everybody's taking a piece, I better take a piece or I might never see it again. Here, the majority of past visitors have left the petrified forest in the park, preserving the natural state of the petrified forest. I'm thinking, oh, I want to be like most people who are good, decent human beings and leave the park in the state that they found it. 4 times less. Guys, it's just a sign, just a sign. Is 4 times less a little or humongous just by the wording? So words do matter. So highlight if they did not if you send a card to somebody about attending an appointment, you want to say highlight how many do not shows last month. Social proof that that's okay that it's okay to miss appointments. So if you send a card saying, hey, we'd like you to show up because we had 10% of our people don't show up, which is blah, 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 blah. No, reverse it and say 90% of the people did show up for appointments. So they tried it with, this is in professional environment. They sent people 2 cards saying, hey, we had 10% of people did not show up last month. That's harmful to other people because you've taken appointments that other people cannot have. And then instead they said 90% of people did show up for appointments, making the environment, I don't know how they finish it, but basically it's saying making the environment better for all patients and staff or whatever. They found that when they reversed it, just like with the petrified forest, instead of highlighting the people that didn't show, they highlighted the number of people that did show. The appointment missing went down by 31%. So if you do send out cards like that, make sure you emphasize not how many people that don't show, but how many people that do show. That's a huge difference. Again, costs you nothing. It's just what you're printing on the card, the words you're printing on the card. So the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology at Yale University, this is the actual study that helped get poor people to show up for their appointments, not by a little, but by a huge amount. The Yale Close, 6 questions that get people closing themselves to make even more effective. So here's the thing they did, and they found that when they did this, they actually doubled the amount of people that actually showed up for appointments. So think about this: how much more money would you have made in your practice if you had twice as many people, or cut in half the number of people that did not show up for appointments? How much more money would you have made in your lifetime if half the people that did not show actually showed up for appointments? A little or a lot of money? What are these 6 questions? Well, first of all, you want to emphasize that it's their decision. You got to emphasize that it's their decision, not yours. So it's completely your decision whether you come or not. Obviously nobody can force you to come in. You're your own person. You can do what you want. You know what you want more than anyone. And then to further perceive autonomy, ask permission to ask the questions before you get them there. So this is what you do before you actually even ask the questions. And think about where we use this. Where do we use it's completely your decision? No one can force you. Well, we use this at the closing script. You'll notice a lot of these techniques are used in our first meeting closing script. In fact, we play the devil's advocate when we use so why would you want to come in then? I mean, why would you want to go through this hassle? You've already invested an hour of your time. We're talking about going home, then coming back in the future for another hour and a half. You might have to go downstairs and find your power of attorney, dig through the filing cabinet. I mean, Why would you even want to go through all of that? See, I'm making them tell me, I'm not telling them that they need to do this and they'd be silly for not doing it. I'm saying, hey, there's hassle here, there's time involved. Why would you even want to do this? And make them explain to me it's their decision, not mine. So you always want to make sure that you let people, and think about good parenting. When you try to force a kid to do something, they're gonna fight back. But instead, when you constantly salt in, well, it's your decision. No, I trust you to make the right decision. You've matured. I trust the way that you view the world. You have a lot of responsibility, so I trust you to make your decision. You tell me whether this is a good idea or not. We use this stuff in real everyday life, don't we? Either subconsciously or consciously. But I want you to start using it consciously. So the first thing you want to let them know is nobody can make the decision, especially at a first meeting, at a seminar, or at a first meeting, get them to go to the second meeting, the 21-point checklist. We don't want to force them or just kind of corral them into it. We want to slow the process all the way down and say, now, obviously, I can't tell you whether this is a good idea for you or not. There's only one person who can tell you it's a good idea, and that's you. So what do you think? Is it a good idea or is it not a good idea? Why is it not a good idea? Why is it a good idea? So that's the first thing, is make sure they understand they're in charge, that they're not being corralled. You're your own person. You can do what you want. So inner city hospital pays, I was wrong. Didn't double. It went up by 250%. 250% when they started using the Yale close. The first thing they would do with the inner city hospitals is they would say, now, yes, you have diabetes, and it would make sense to go to the next appointment so we can get you set up, but it's your decision. I mean, I can't force you. Nobody's going to force you to show up for that appointment. You're your own person, and you do whatever you want. You know what you want more than anybody else. This is your decision. Before you make the decision, can I, do I ever use the word but? Guys, do we ever want to use the word but? I did a bad thing there. I said, and before you make that decision, can I ask you just a few other questions that might help you make that decision? Inner city hospital patients would return for follow-up visits 250% more. Think about what that would do to your business. And do you think I want everybody to answer this with either yes or no. Do you think it's harder to get an inner city person who has to deal with bosses, time off from work that's going to cost them money they don't have, travel problems, connecting through Thrive buses, finding childcare, etc.? Do you think it's going to be harder for them to get them to show up for an appointment, or for somebody that went to your seminar or your webinar to show up for an appointment? Who do you think it'd be harder? Do you think it'd be harder for the inner city people? Yes. Or do you think it'd be less hard for the city people? No. Yeah, the city people, Mark. It's going to be way harder to get the inner city people. So if it works for these poor people in the inner city to show up for the appointments, how well do you think it's going to work for us in what we do? Way better. So what is this Yale close? After we get them permission, they give us permission to ask these 6 questions. What are those questions? Well, the first one is, why might you want to do this? Do we ask that at the end of our first meeting in our script? Yes, we do. So why might this be a good idea? Why might it be a good idea to show up for your next diabetes appointment? Or in our case, why might it be a good idea then to show up, go through to the next meeting? What could happen at that next meeting? It's a simple way to do it. I'm going to go through why or more in detail how we do this, but I just want to go through the basic 6 questions first. 2, on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 being I'm not doing this, to 10, get out of my way, I'm doing it right now, where would you place yourself? A 0? I'm not going to do this, never would, I have no interest whatsoever. Or a 10? Yeah, move out of the way, I want to do this right now. That's the second question. Then once they give you that number, you say, well, why didn't you pick a lower number? I mean, you picked 7. Why didn't you pick a 5 or a 4 or a 3? Do you notice what kind of questions are all these questions? Why, how, why? What kind of questions are they? They're all open. See, now imagine you would have done this already. What good could have come from it? Imagine what good could. So the things we're talking about today, what good could come from it? So when you're talking to a diabetic, you say, well, you're in here because this happened, and you're missing work because of it. So what good could happen if we did get this under control? With us, and again, we'll go in more detail on how we do it at the first meeting, but remember, we're going to go through the USPs. So we say, now imagine you've done this already. What good could have come from this? Number 5, why are those outcomes so important to you? Why are those things that you said, those good things that could happen, why are they important to you? So what is your next step, if any? Do you see there? We're saying we're saying that it's their decision. So what is your next step, if any? We don't just say what is your next step. That's corralling them. When we say this last 2 words, if any, that reflects right back to what? It's completely your decision. No one can force you. You're your own person. You can do what you want. You know what you want more than anyone. That's why you have to add if any. So what would be your next step, if any? And I always follow up with why. So do you recognize these things in the first meeting? Do you recognize some of these things in the first meeting? So in a one-to-one meeting, we want to make sure with our seniors that we get them to close themselves. So they'll close 6 questions to get people closing themselves. What are those 6 questions? Well, remember what we do at the first with the USPs. So I'm going to go back here. How ready are you to do this? Why might you want to do this? Why didn't you pick a lower number? This is one I don't do this one. I think it's a little heavy-handed and difficult, so I don't do this one, but it'd be even more powerful if you did. Imagine if you've done this already, what good could come from it? Why are those outcomes so important to you? So guys, we utilize all these things when we use the USPs. So, and where do we use the USPs? We should be using them where? At the barbecue, we should be using them. What do you do for a living? Well, I help people with that are retired. We look at their income, their retirement income, and we have a technique that increases it by 25% or more. And here's the funny thing. We're increasing their income by 25% or more. So if they're making 100,000, they make 125,000, and their chance of running out of money actually goes down. So their income goes up by 20%, chance of running out goes down, and we don't even move a single investment. It's just a different technique. Now, on a scale of 1 to 5, where would, now again, we won't do that at a barbecue, but at a seminar, I would say, or at a first meeting, I would say what? So on a scale of 1 to 5, where would you say was that not interesting at all or very interesting? One being I'm not interested at all in increasing my income, lowering the chance of running out of money, and I don't even have to move a single investment. Would you say that's a 0? Or would you say that's a 5? Yeah, I want to know how to do that. What would you say? And guys that have done this, how many people, what percentage of people say 5 to that? And remember, this is a unique selling proposition that has been looked at by 15 that I know of, 15 different broker dealers or money managers or IRRs, or RIAs, compliance departments that have all said, yeah, that's an okay. You can use that unique selling proposition. So what percentage of people say anything but 5? Or what percentage of people do say that's a 5? I want to know how to do that. You remember, the big thing here is without. That's why this is why it's capitalized. Without moving a single investment. What percentage of people say 5s? I've been talking to them. Nobody's answering here, but I'll tell you that of any tape that I've ever listened to, I've never heard anybody but say that's right. 100% of people. I've never heard anybody say anything but yes, that's a 5 for me. Then I say another thing that we do is we reduce people's tax they pay in their IRA account by 70%, because when you take money out of an IRA or your retirement account, how much of that is taxed? A lot of it. Yeah, we show people how they can reduce that tax by 70%. On a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, where would you be on that? 1, I could really give a crap how much money I pay in my IRA, or I'd like to reduce the tax I pay in my IRA. 1 to 5. They all say 5s. And oops. And we reduce the tax you pay on your investment income down to just 1%. Now, if you're in the 15, 25, what tax bracket do you think you're in? Well, I think I'm in like a 25 or 30%. Yeah. So if we could take it from 25 or 30% down to just 1%, we do that for folks too. So where would you say on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being I don't really care about how much that I'm in a 25 or 30% tax bracket, to yeah, get out of my way. I want to know how to reduce my tax bracket to just 1%. Where would you say you're a 1 or a 5 on that? What does everybody say? 5. And then have you applied, by the way, for the program that will pay for 2 years of long-term care costs without having to pay any expensive annual insurance premiums? Well, no. How do you do that? Oh, so like on a scale 1 to 5, 1 being I don't really care, or 5, I'd like 5. I'd like to at least know how to do that. Where would you place yourself? 1 or 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do they all say? 5. Have you applied for the program that will protect your wife from losing half of her Social Security income at your death? Because when you die, right now you're getting 2 Social Security checks. When you die, what happens to your check? And they'll either say, well, it goes away, or they say, well, my wife will get that. Okay, and then what happens to your wife's check? Well, that goes away. Yeah, so she goes from getting 2 checks to what? To 1 check. Yeah, 1 check. Have you applied for the program that will make sure your wife doesn't lose that income from losing half of her Social Security at your death? On a scale of 1 to, no, I haven't, what program is that? How does that work? On a scale of 1 to 5, where would you say that would be? 1, I don't really care, or 5, yeah, I want to know how to do that. I want to know how to do that. Okay, so now that I've done these USPs, I'm going to instantly increase my closing ratio. How? Because I'm going to go back here and say these things. So why might you want to do these 5 things? Why might you want to increase your income by 25% and lower your risk? And especially if it's just a technique, you don't even have to move a single cent of your money. Why might you want to do that? Why might you want to know how to protect your wife so she doesn't lose half the Social Security income at your death? Why might you want to reduce your taxes from 25 or 30% down to the 1 on your investment income to 1%? Why might you want to reduce the tax you pay on your withdrawals from your retirement accounts by 70%? Why might you want your long-term care paid for if you ever needed that without having to pay, at least for 2 years, without having to pay expensive premiums? Why would you want to do that? And have them explain it to you. So imagine if you'd done those things already, what good could have come from it? If you'd already increased your income 5 years ago by 25% a year, or reduced the tax you pay in your, have you drawn any money from IRAs yet? How would it have affected you if it was 70% less in taxes? Last year, looking at your taxes, how would it have been if you're on your investment income, you're only at 1% versus 25 or 30%? What good could have come from that? Why would you even want to do that? Why are those outcomes important to you? I mean, what? It's only money. Why not send it to the IRS? It's only money. Why is that so important to you? And let them what? Explain why, in their own words, why it's important to do that things. So what is your next step, if any? I mean, if we waited, what could happen? If we waited 6 months, what could happen? And guys, what could happen? If they waited 6 months, what could happen to those 6 unique selling propositions? If they waited 6 months, what could happen to their ability to reduce their taxes by 70% in the IRA? It could go away. Could they change the laws on that? Could they change the laws on this? If they needed long-term care, what would happen to their ability to do this? And you're right, Mark, if the spouse died, can you do this planning after your spouse dies? Number 5. No. So why would you want to do it now? What would happen if we waited 6 months? So what are the 3 visceral emotions we tap into with our clothes? Fear, greed, and frustration. So the first one I'm going to tap into is greed. What would have happened? Imagine if we'd done these things 5 years ago, how much more money would we have in our pocket? If you'd made 25% more income over the last 5 years, if you'd of all the money you've withdrawn from your retirement accounts, you paid 7% less taxes. If you were in the 1% tax bracket versus the 15 or 30% tax bracket on your investment income, how much more money would you have had in the last 5 years? That's greed. We're tapping into greed. The fear is, what would happen if we waited for, hey, I get it. You're busy. You got things going on. You got family. You got friends. You got travel. You're busy. What would happen if we waited 6 months to do these 6 things? What could happen? What could happen to this one? What could happen to that one? What could happen to that one? What could happen to this one? What could happen to that one? So that's greed, fear, and then I want to tap into frustration, which is also tapping into, so what is your next step, if any? So what should we do then? I mean, you've already invested an hour with me, but that's not, you're not done. Now I'm saying, hey, go home, gather more data, go down to the basement, go to the bank, go to your Social Security box, wherever, get your power of attorney, look for your healthcare power of attorney. I need to see all your statements. That's a hassle. And then you have to come back in for another hour appointment with me, or I'm sorry, the next appointment is about an hour and a half. That seems like a lot of hassle and time to invest. Why would you even want to do that? Am I putting it squarely on them that it's their decision, they're in charge? Let me go back here. Sorry. It's completely their decision. Nobody's forcing them. They're their own person to do what they want. I've even played the devil's advocate, reminded them, this is work. You're going to have to go home, go down, look in the filing cabinets, come back, invest another hour and a half. Do you really want to do that? Why would you want to even do that? And I make them what? Tell me why. So greed, fear, frustration. And they're going to tell me what? They said, this is a 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Are they going to say, well, I want more income. If you give me more income and reduce my taxes, what you're talking about, that's not a waste of time. That's good. Do I want them to explain to me? Because are they explaining to me? Do I really care if they explain to me or not? Who are they explaining to? Who do I want them to explain why it makes sense for them to come back? Themselves. That's right, themselves. So this is how you instantly increase your closing ratio. So when do I use the unique selling propositions? I use them when? At a barbecue, and somebody says, what do? I use them at a seminar. I use them at a webinar. I use this at the end of the first meeting when they actually come into my office. Because when people want these things, what's the likelihood they're going to show up at the next meeting? When they've said it's a 5, 5, 5, and if they say it's a 5 and then they go home and the husband says, oh my God, this is just too much work. I don't want to go. Let's just skip it. What's the wife going to say? Like, hell, we both agreed that we wanted more income and less taxes. And I sure in the heck don't want to have you die and I lose half the Social Security. So go down to the freaking basement, go to the friggin' filing cabinet and get these documents. We're going back. See, when they've said it out loud, and what can the guy say? Because he was there, he said it out loud in front of his wife, in front of the advisor. So what does he have to do? He has to follow through. Do you see how we're using psychology to get them to show up? This instantly increases your closing ratio. So use this at a backyard barbecue. Oh, and the other way that you get people to show up is what we've talked about. I'm not going to go waste anybody's time on this. We've covered it so many times. That another way at a seminar or a webinar, you tell me, what is the thing I ask you to practice when you're getting ready for a webinar or a seminar to get them to make an appointment? This gets them to show up to the appointment, these things. It will also help them to make an appointment. But what else do we do to get them to make an appointment? Do you remember? That's right, Nick. Use their names. Use their names. So when I'm at a party, I'm going to visit everybody and talk to them at least for 1 minute, eyeball to eyeball, show them one-on-one love, not group love, but one-on-one love. So that, because that's a whole different experience. And I didn't know this. Remember, I had a 26% appointment ratio, 26% appointment ratio at my seminars. Now, once they showed up, I had basically 100% or close to it, a 90%, 95% closing ratio. Once they showed up at that first meeting with me, I got them to move all their money. Not some of their money, all their money. But I only got 26% of people to show up because in the comments I got on my feedback forms from the seminars were really entertaining, lots of information, great, a great presentation. All these things are what? Very entertaining, lots of information, great presentation. All of those things are what? They say, Mike, you gave me dinner and a what? You gave me dinner and a what? And I actually only gave them pie. That's right, Mark, they are worthless. Why? What are they saying to me when they say that? Boy, that was a fun time. That's a lot of information. Was there any connection there whatsoever? See, because I was so shy, I was like over the top, a different personality, loud, brash, and talked to the people as a group, not individually. I didn't make any eye contact because I was too freaked out that somebody might be giving me a stink eye and it would make me melt out there on stage. So I was like a showman on the stage. So I gave them a big show, but there was no one-on-one connection at the meetings. When I finally learned working through you guys helped me understand this, that we treat them the same way at a seminar that we treat them one-on-one, which is we call them by names. So at every slide, I ask an open-ended question, say, so who is Mary? Mary, I said, Mary, say that again. Mary nailed it. That's exactly right, Mary. Good job. And then I give her what? I give her a silver dollar, or I give her a $2 bill, or whatever as a that a boy. And then I go to the next slide, ask questions. Say, Bob got it. Bob just said blah 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 blah. Good job, Bob. And I'm looking them in the eye, talking to them. So I talk to every single person at that seminar face to face at least once, twice, 3 times during the seminar. Guess what happens? Every guy that has done that, nobody's got less than a 70-80% appointment ratio. Nobody's got 70 to 80% appointment ratio. Why? Because the people feel like you've connected with them directly. So these things cost you nothing. The things I've shown you today cost you nothing. Does it cost you anything to learn the USPs and how they work? No. Does it cost you anything to learn how to use our closing script on the first meeting? No. Does it cost you anything to learn the Yale close? No. Does it cost you anything to learn to call people by their first names at a seminar or a webinar? No, these things are free. All they take is some elbow grease. But guess how much doing these free things could increase your income? See, isn't that what we all want? We all want the ability to increase our income at no cost. These are all not low cost. These are no cost things to do. They're skills. If you get highly skilled at the 6 unique selling propositions, if you get highly skilled at the 6 Yale questions, if you get highly skilled at doing a seminar or webinar by asking open-ended questions and addressing people one by one in that room or on that webinar by their names, your income is going to go straight through the roof at no cost. At no cost. It just takes you investing some elbow grease in learning these skills. So any questions on the things that I've covered today? Any questions on the things I've covered today and how to do this? Let me go out. I'm going to get out here a second. I want to go to move this here a second. On you. I want to go show you. Okay. Setting the tone, gathering data, goals, close script. Let's look at the close script. Okay, so super. We covered all this stuff at the first meeting. Super. I have all those things you told me noted. We'll actually come back with a report that will detail all the benefits you're owed and might not be receiving. That you're owed, but might not be receiving. We usually find between 16 to 21 benefits you aren't currently aware of that are available to you. And heck, we've already found 3 or 4 possibilities. So are you okay with me looking for more? Yes. So did you bring the statements? If not, we have a different script for that. So I say, can I take a look at them? I take a brief look, do not have any opinions. I don't give them any opinions, don't engage them in any discussions on any of the investments. I just want to make sure I have the information that I need. By the way, if they just bring in spreadsheets, is that enough, or do I need the actual statements? If they bring in spreadsheets, an Excel spreadsheet with all their investments, is that okay, or do I need their exact statements? Is a spreadsheet okay, yes or no? Yea or nay? That's right, Mark. Mark got it. I need to see the actual statements because I'm going to say, listen, I need to look at I don't need the amount of money. You know the amount of money. I don't need the amount of money. When you get a statement, how many pages is it? Is it 1 page or is it 15 pages? Guys, when they get their brokerage statement, is it 1 page or is it 15 pages? And then I say, so I don't need to know what's on the front page. You already know what's on the front page. That's what you're putting right there in the Excel spreadsheet. I need to know what's on the other pages. That's right, Tom. Because I need to look at the small print. And where do they put the small print, folks? On the front page or on the last page? In order for me to find things that you're owed but not receiving, I don't need to look at the front page. I need to look at the back page because the small print is where? On the front or the back page? Now, guys, why do I do this? Because I want them to believe that I'm looking at everything and going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. So when I tell them the turnover ratio is what it is, when I tell them the management tenure is what it is, when I tell them the risk reward is what it is, that they believe that I know that because I got all their statements. If they just give me an Excel spreadsheet, could they doubt this? Could they doubt the tenure? Could they doubt the turnover? Could they doubt the correlation? Could they doubt the risk reward? Yes, they could. But when they give me all the documents and I show them those things, they think, well, he has all my documentation. It must have been in there and I didn't see it. You need to get all the documents. Okay, so now we're back into the closing script. Well, that's pretty much all I need to begin with the putting your personalized report together, your CYA, control your assets. Now they think CYA is what? Control your assets and cover your ass process. What good could come from this then? Because remember, I've already gone through the 6 USPs. That's the other things I can do for them. Let's say, so what good could come from going through this process right now? What good could come from it? Does that sound familiar to what I just covered with you about this Yale close? What good could come from this? And then they tell me, and I say, and what could happen if we waited for 6 months or a year to look at these things? Again, greed. What good could come from it? Greed. What could happen if we waited 6 months or a year to look at it? Fear. And why is it worth your time and hassle to do this now? I mean, you're putting in time today. You may need to put in a couple of follow-up. I may need to ask you a few follow-up questions. If I miss anything today, and you may have to dig through some filing cabinets to find this document or that document. So why is it worth a little bit of hassle and time you'll put into this process? Frustration. I'm addressing frustration there and having them tell me that even though it's going to be a little bit frustrating, I still want to do this for all these reasons. Super. Well, once I have these documents, it takes a week to 10 days to get this put together for you. So what day of the week will work for you next week? Okay, in order for me to put this together for you, I need all the information a week before we get back together again in order to prepare the report that we'll be going through. Now, here's the thing, guys. Does it take me a week to do a 21-point checklist? How long does it really take me? I used to do these by hand. I didn't even have software. You guys are lucky. You have software. I used to have to do these by hand. But guess how long it took me per 21-point checklist? It took me about a half an hour. Like Mark said, now with you guys, with the software, it takes you 5 minutes. So why then, Mark, would I say it takes me a week? I need a week to do this. Because heck, I could actually do it for them right there and there almost. Say, hey, go to lunch, come back, I'll have it for you. Why do I tell them it's going to take a week, guys, even though it's going to take me 15 minutes? That's right, image, perception, the optics. I want it to look like it takes work to do these things. So let's do this. We set an appointment for a week. We set an appointment to get back together next Thursday, right? So I need all this information to me by this Thursday. So since today is Tuesday, would you be able to bring these forms in by tomorrow or Thursday? Because otherwise we can't schedule a Thursday out. Just a heads up, you won't be meeting with me when you drop these documents off. You'll be meeting with Missy or with Ellie, and she'll help you make copies of these things. It'll only be about a 15-minute appointment, and then they'll make copies of the items, send you on your way, and then we'll get together then. So let's go to the front desk. We'll make an appointment for a couple of appointments for you. One to drop off the information, and two for us to get together to review it, and we'll go through all those documents. Look forward to seeing you do it. So guys, and then here's, if they didn't bring the documents in, this is what we'll do. So does this help? Do you see how we're using the 6 USPs? And then we're saying we're using and we use the 1 through 5s instead of 1 through 10s. We have 1 through 5s with each of the 6 USPs, and then we use why would it be a good thing to do it now? What would happen if we wait? Why is it worth the hassle? Tell me what you would get out of this. Do you see how we're using all those Yale closes actually fine-tuned and tailored for our process? So if you do this right, how many people will show up to the next appointment? Virtually everybody. I've never seen anybody that covered all 6 USPs, got people say 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, that did not show up for the next appointment. And how much money did it cost for us to do this? Virtually nothing. Mark's saying, would you say this is still powerful for virtual meetings? Absolutely. I think you nailed it right there with your phrasing. Would you say this is still powerful for virtual meetings? Yes. This, on a one-to-one, it's just as powerful at a virtual meeting as it is face-to-face. On a one-to-one, if I'm just meeting with one person on Zoom and I do the 6 USPs, 1 through 5s, follow this script, it works the exact same way. Now, the seminar versus webinar, no. It does not work the same. At a seminar, you'll get 80% closing ratio at a person-to-person seminar. On a virtual webinar, you might only get 50 to 60% closing ratio at a webinar, because it's much more difficult to call people by their names at a webinar or get that eyeball-to-eyeball connection in a webinar. But still, would you guys be happy with a 50 or 60% closing ratio at a webinar? Because webinars are also 50 to 60% more cheaper than a seminar, and less hassle than a seminar. But as far as, Mark, a one-on-one, I'm meeting with somebody one-on-one on Zoom, this works the exact same way as if I'm meeting them face-to-face on a one-to-one. It just, with a seminar versus webinar, no. It's going to be way more powerful than not doing it with a webinar, but certainly not as powerful as a seminar. Does that make sense to you, or did that answer your question? Did that answer your question, Mark? Perfect. So guys, these things cost you nothing to put into place. It's just a matter of you putting in the work to learn how to do them. And I can't emphasize enough, how many of your competitors are utilizing any of these? Let me get back here, slideshow, current slide. How many of your competitors are using any of these unique selling propositions? How many of your clients want number 1, want number 2, want number 3, want number 4, want number 5? Almost all of them. And Mark, you say very few. I'd be interested. Guys, here's the thing. If your clients or your prospects went back to their current advisor and said, "Hey, I just heard Mark." So let me talk to you, Mark. So thanks for going back and forth with me. So Mark, if your client, or not your client, your prospect came to see you and you said, "I can increase your income by 25% or more and lower your chance of running out of money, and you don't need to move a single investment they went back to their current advisor, how many of those advisors would say, oh, I know what they're talking about? So Mark, I'm just going to talk to you right now. Thanks for going back and forth with me. How many of your competitors would say, oh, I know what Mark's talking about there? Well, if Mark said yes, they would BS the client. So then, okay, if they BS the client, Mark, what's the client going to say? Okay, show me. Would they be able to show them how to increase their income by 25% and lower their chance of running out of money without moving a single investment? You know what? If they go back and if they BS them and say they could do it, yeah, first of all, they say, why didn't you say it before? Absolutely, they're going to say that. And second of all, they're going to say, prove it. And is the guy going to be able to show to do it? Does that guy have any clue how we're doing this? Hell, I bet you half the people in this call, even though they're with 5Q, couldn't explain to me how we're doing this, even though we've been talking about it for 5 years. So he's lost. So he's not going to do that, Mark. He doesn't want to lose, so he's not going to do that. Now, let's say your client goes back and says, hey, I want you to show me how to pay 75% less taxes when I withdraw money from my retirement accounts. How many of your competitors are going to say, yeah, I know how to do that? Again, I think you gave me the same answer, or we can use your same answers, is if they say, yeah, I can do that, they're going to say, like you said, well, then why didn't you do me that before? Or they're going to say, show me, and he's not going to know how to do it. If your prospect goes back, hey, show me how you can reduce the tax I pay on my investment income to just 1% instead of 15 to 25 or 30% that I'm paying now. So he'll either have to say, I don't know how to do that, or he's going to, because if he says, I do know how to do that, they're going to say, then why the hell didn't you do that before? They're going to keep, they will turn on you and say that you are lying to the client. Well, then what can the client say? Client can come back to you and say, you're freaking lying to me, Mark. You're freaking lying to me. And can you prove each one of these things, Mark? Can you prove each one of these things? Would you be happy if they came back and said, Mark, you're lying. You can't do those things? And here's one thing you can do, Mark. Do we have one-page handouts to prove to them that you could reduce the tax they pay by 1 to 1%? Do we have one-page handouts to give them? I'm not going to give them all this stuff, but if they said, my guy said you're lying, I said, well, can I just show you how we can do one of these things? I'm not going to show you how to do all these things, because you know what? But if I show you do one of these things and he says I'm lying, what does that say about your current advisor? And what does the client have to say then? Well, then he's the one that's lying. Right. So I'll show you how to do one of these things. But is it my job, Mark, to you're prospect right now, Mark? Is it my job to educate my competition, your advisor, Mark? Is it my job to educate your advisor? No. So I'll show you. Hey, I get in today's world, you need to dot all your I's, cross all your T's. If something sounds too good to be true, probably is. So you need to double check. So I get you double check it. So I've given you these 6 things. I'll show you how to do one of those things because he said all these things are lies. I'll show you how to do one of these things. But if he said all these things are lies and I show you how to do one of these things, what does that tell you about your advisor, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect? He's the one that's lying. But guess how often I've had somebody take these back to their current advisor? Because remember, when you do the script right, and use the L close, what are they going to do? They just want to come in. They want to come in and what? See how you can do these things. Because have you told, Mark, am I telling them here, am I telling them here that if I show them how to do all these things, they need to move their money to me? Is there anywhere in the script that I tell them that they must do that? Is there anywhere in the script, guys, where I tell them that if I do these 6 things for you, show you how to do these things, you have to move all your money to me? Is there anywhere in the script that I tell them to do that they must do that? No. So guess how many will go back to their current advisor and say, show me how to do these things? No, they want to come to you, Mark, to have you show them how to do these things And yeah, their plan probably is to take this information and go back to the current advisor. Do we care about that, Mark? If their goal here is to come back to you and get all this information and then go back to their current advisor, would I give a crap if that was their goal? If that was that was what they were going to thinking in their head what they wanted to do? No. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I care about that, Mark? Because this is going to get them to what? To a 21-point checklist. The 21-point checklist job is to what? Show them that their advisor has been screwing them. Now, here's where I get people saying, or advisors saying, but Mike, you just promised them at the first meeting that you're going to give them all this information, and then they come to the 21-point checklist and you don't give them any of this information. Guys, what do we agree about at the first meeting? I'm sorry, at the first part of this 21-point checklist. What's our agreement with the client in the first 5 minutes of the 21-point checklist? That I came with solutions, or there will be no solutions today? At the beginning of a 21-point checklist, in the first 5 minutes, do I have the client tell me that I'm going to give them solutions at the end of the meeting, or that there are no solutions today? And then do I have the client tell me how many times that it would be stupid for me to provide solutions? 3, 4, 5 times. So if they tell me 3, 4, 5 times at the beginning of the 21-point checklist that I'm not going to give them solutions, what does that mean about me showing them how to do any of these things? I will or will not give them that. No. And by the end of the first meeting, if they're still asking about these USPs, what have you done? At the end of the 21-point checklist, if they are still saying, okay, yeah, no, I get that. All that stuff you covered, those 21 points you covered, that's fine. But yeah, how do you do those things you talked about before? Increase my income by 25% or reduce my taxes? If they're saying that at the end of a 21-point checklist, what did you do at the 21-point checklist? There should be only one thing in their head at the end of a 21-point checklist, and what is that? That's right. If they're asking about these at the end of the 21-point checklist, Mark, you screwed it up. Because there's only one thing that they should be thinking at the end of the 21-point checklist, which is what? My guy has been screwing me. I do not trust my guy anymore. I need to move my money to Mike. Then guess what? When they decide to move their money to me, guess what I can then do there? I can show them how to increase their income by 25%. I can show them how to pay less taxes on their IRA trust. I can show them how to reduce their investing income by 1%. I can show them the program to get 2 years long-term care without expensive medical premiums. I can show them how to protect their wife from losing, becoming poor if when he dies from losing Social Security. I can show them once they move their money. So was this a helpful call, guys? I mean, this was a pretty deep call that I went through here, even though it doesn't seem like it. But was this helpful in getting you guys motivated to maybe learn something that maybe you forgot that we offer? This is something that's well worth learning. Make sense? Awesome, awesome. Thanks for sticking it out the whole hour, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a good week, guys. Bye-bye.